Ever wonder where your tax dollars go? City Manager Ron Smith is with us today to talk about what gets funded in the city of Statesville and what doesn't. Tune in now.
Welcome to Front and Center, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on government operations, offering you an exclusive glimpse into the inner workings of the city of Statesville.
Welcome back to Front and Center. I'm here again today with my fabulous co-host, Nikayla Griffin.
Hello.
Welcome, Nikayla.
Thank
Glad
you.
you are here with us today.
Absolutely.
And we have another veteran back with us today, and City Manager Ron Smith.
Yes.
I don't know if he's ready for this because, we're going to try to keep the target talk down a little bit today.
That's
but
good.
It will come up again. I'm just going to give you fair warning. We're still on the target.
I've already
hunt.
found a spot.
Have you? Oh, perfect. Let's talk after.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay, all right. So what we're talking about today is budget season for the city of Statesville. And Ron, I know this is your favorite time of the year, or not. This is a tough time for the city. So let's just jump right in. And first we're going to talk about what the biggest sources of income are for the city. What's the revenue sources here?
Well, there's several, and the biggest one is the property tax, and that's probably, I'd say that's 65-70% of how, all the revenues coming in, and that is based on the taxes that are applied by the city and by the county. We don't get those revenues, but you have the luxury of paying both. But that's the biggest one, and then we have the sales tax. So basically anything purchased in the county is distributed amongst all the communities and the county. And, that's our second highest revenue that we get. And then we have fees, for various things, stormwater fees, electric utility bills, water sewer bills, all of that. And it all contributes to what is probably about $178 million budget that we have.
Wow.
And so, you have to have the revenues to put out, toward the expenditures, but it's grown substantially over the years.
Wow.
As the tax base has grown and as the needs of the citizens and the city overall has grown.
That's why we wanted to start with that first, because first we need to know where we make the money, but what we really want to talk about today is how the city spends the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what are the top 3 areas where the city spends the most money?
Well, people, first and foremost, people. And, so we have a workforce of about 580, I believe it is. So, we're a medium-sized city. It takes a lot of people to run it.
Yeah,
And so people are, writ large, that's definitely the biggest thing we spend money on. And it's changed over the years because it's gotten much more expensive.
Absolutely.
Coming out of COVID, we had a lot of trouble filling positions. And so now it's kind of been this paradigm shift. 10, 15 years ago, the city had multiple applications and resumes for any position that you had open.
Right.
And we had the luxury of bringing folks in at lower, pay levels because we've got a pay scale, and you start at the bottom and you work your way up as you work in the city. That is absolutely not how it is now. As coming out of the pandemic, people and with interest rates on homes going up, people have not wanted to relocate.
Yeah.
And it's been harder and harder for a multitude of reasons to get people to want to come to the city to work. So not only has it made it the applicants more scarce, we're having to pay more to do it as well. And every community in North Carolina and probably in the country is dealing with this.
Yeah.
So our competitors are taking, steps, and so we have to kind of keep up with them because, somebody might say, well, don't pay, we don't want to pay that much for this position. Well, you have to, otherwise that position does not get filled, or it's filled with somebody that is not qualified to do it. So first and foremost, people. There's some other boring things like, our state retirement system is getting more and more expensive to deal with, health insurance.
Every year seems to
it
go up a
goes
little.
Yep. Yeah, so everything's going up. Everything that people feel at home, we feel at the city, and you have to have an ability to pay for it. So we'll probably get into that a little bit more later on. So Second is probably capital projects, capital requests, and capital projects.
Yeah.
So again, if you want to run an efficient city, you have to have the facilities, and you have to have the equipment and the rolling stock to actually make that happen. That is not cheap. And again, with inflation being what it's been over the last 4 or 5 years, we're paying 10, 15, 50% more for the things we buy and build, based on what it is. And so it's gotten very expensive, and it's been a real challenge, for us to fund, because as the budget has grown, I'd love to say, well, we're not having to spend as much and we could give some of that back.
Right.
But again, when you're paying that much more for everything, including people, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Then probably next, and this is kind of a category that includes what I just said, the people and the stuff, but public safety. Public
Yes,
safety is always
absolutely.
the one. We put more money in public safety as from a departmental level, other than electric, and I'll get to that. But when you buy a fire truck, that's $1.5 million to $2 million. We have a rotation to replace police vehicles every year, so they're efficient and running and reliable. So you got to replace 9 a year, if not 10, and that's costly
That
because
is
they're
expensive.
almost $80,000 per.
Absolutely.
So it all adds up in public safety, but that has always been the highest priority for the council to fund, and so and reasonably so.
Right.
You want to make sure that people feel safe in the city that they live in. And then the Statesville Public Power, that's a big part of our budget. I'd say that's about 40% of our budget, because you have to buy the power, and so we're buying wholesale power, distributing it or transmitting it out through the city, and charging a retail rate. So that's a big part. We put a lot of money into that, but it being an enterprise, that's paid for by your electric bill, not through taxes.
Wow.
Back to public safety for a second. With the 5 to 6% population increase, that is really putting pressure on public safety and probably the entire city. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at, because I was reading something that said we had about 5 to 6%. And that's a lot of people.
It
I
is.
mean, and you predicted this, our very first podcast, you predicted we'd be at 30,000 or at least 30,000 people within a couple of years. And we are so close to that right now.
Wow.
I mean, and then every so many people that the city has, you have to have another officer. I mean, you have to have more fire stations, more trucks, more people. I mean, it's just crazy. So just want to touch back on that. I mean, with the population growth. So
Yeah, and that's true, and so that's been one of the struggles that the council has had with growth. With these large subdivisions that have been coming to get approval. What do you do? Because yes, on one level, you want the people because you can distribute the wealth, so to speak, and the cost of services.
get a target.
And get a target.
I'm telling you, that's where your money gonna come.
But it would help us with sales tax.
Right,
probably.
I know. We got a plan.
Of course, I don't know. I mean, people probably are just going to go from the Target in Mooresville and come up here, so you can get around.
We'll take those people too.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, but it is costly. I mean, there's a cost of growth, and what we've been trying to figure out is the cost of growth higher than the benefit? And so far, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But over time, it's just going to have to play out.
Yeah.
So tell us, how does the city decide which projects and services get funded each year? That's got to be a hard decision. I see you with the red pen. So, I mean, before you even take it to council, you have to go through this whole budget and say, okay, this is a no, this is a, we're going to leave this in. Not always a yes, because it still has to go to council. But how do you do this?
Well, it's not dissimilar to your home budget.
Yeah.
And so you only have so many dollars that you can spend every month or whatever, and you only have the capacity for so much debt, and that's largely what it is. And so what we do, we have two retreats with the council each year, which are always difficult because you're giving the council difficult problems and asking for their opinion to help solve them. And that's hard. It's hard
That
for
is.
them. It's hard for me. It's hard for you all. But at the end of the day, I've got to get their priorities. And if their priorities are, if they've shifted to parks over public safety, then we need to make that shift too.
Right.
So that's part of it. You get your priorities from the decision makers. And you've gone through this with me in the past. We've got all total 15, 16 different departments that are going to be putting their requests in, and you have outside agency requests. You have increases here and there and everywhere else. And what it is just a big puzzle. You figure out, okay, back to the home budget, we're going to put this much toward our people, this much to public safety. And ultimately, you have to just kind of solve that math problem because, going up on taxes is generally is a no-go.
Right.
And that's fine, but you got to figure out how to do it. But they're hard decisions to make.
They are.
A lot of times we think about things in pennies on the tax rate. So 1 penny on the tax rate brings about $500,000, and we're almost 52 cents overall. So when we get our requests in, we kind of figure out how far are we out. So how many pennies are we going to have to bring it down to make it fit into that 52 cents? I don't know where we're at this year, but last year we started 20 cents out.
Oh, my gosh.
You can do the math on that. And that's the requests over the revenue that we have. So it's not easy.
I'll stay putting out fires. I think we can do that better than that penny stuff. Oh my goodness. So what are the city's top priorities with the upcoming budget?
Well, people, again, we always, I think first and foremost, you always have to start with your folks because, if you're not here, Nikayla, and April's not
Wait
here.
a minute.
Then,
Here we go.
But jobs don't get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you could say, okay, okay, Nikayla leaves. Well, we're just going to give her duties to 2 people and just split them up. And I'm notorious for trying to do that.
Right.
You never get it. You never get there. So that means you're taking something. But municipal operations and budgets are push and pull. I mean, if you pull something here, you're going to have to push somewhere else.
Right.
And I mean, that's just the way it is because it's going to it'll have an impact on services.
Right. Absolutely.
So again, that's your people.
Okay.
Fire Station 5 is a big one for us this year.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out how to get a location for and build and staff a new fire station because and it's not associated with growth, not in the least. It's in an area that's just not been served as well as it could have been.
Kind of the northern side. Is that kind of where you're looking?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's on it's on the northern side, and it's also a byproduct of moving Fire Station 1 further south. We knew eventually we were going to have to make this happen, but the problem with Fire Station 5 is going to be you got to build it, or you got to buy the property, you got to build it, you got to staff it, which is about $1.5 million a year. So you don't have those firefighters
That's ongoing.
now. Right.
That adds to the budget.
Yes.
$1.5 million a year for those people to staff that.
Right.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then you have to buy a apparatus or a truck. So in the end, each one of those independently is not so bad, but when you in the aggregate, it's a big number.
Absolutely.
So we're not so large that we can take those types of things on and say, okay, well, we're going to do this and this and this. So it's going to it's definitely going to put a burden on the budget,
right?
But it's necessary. I mean, it's one of
is.
those things you have to do.
And council has put that up there with the people. That's kind of public safety comes after people, I think, is kind of where they listed that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because they give you the list of what they want you to work on, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do. It's a little fungible, but we work it out,
Right.
and the council's been pretty understanding of knowing that if the money's not there, we just can't get to it because there's an ongoing debate about how much debt they want to take on.
Right.
Because debt's not the answer to everything,
Right.
but debt can help with certain things. So.
What about major infrastructure or capital projects planned? Do you have any of those that are upcoming that you can talk about?
Well, again, it really Fire Station 5.
Okay, that's the big one, yes.
Is the big one. We are about to kick off. Fire Station 5 is kind of a glimmer in our eye. We're in the preparation stage for that, but we're also about to kick off the police department expansion.
Absolutely. It's fun.
We should have already kicked it off, but we found the notorious pole.
The power pole, yes.
Yeah, that everything in the world's hanging on
Literally
this pole.
the power pole with everything.
I didn't know we had that many communication
Yeah, really.
companies in the world
Yeah,
God.
and so
to have that many on that pole.
Yeah, so compelling them to move their stuff off of the pole
Yeah.
has not been
The
easy.
easiest. Yeah.
So we should have already started it, but we're delayed. But that focusing on the police department expansion and the parking deck. We've been talking about a civic center parking lot, surface
Okay.
parking, because the civic center has parking issues and some downtown as well. And finally, the municipal operations center, where that's kind of the heartbeat in a way of city operations, because all of our crews are in and out of the what we call the MOC, sanitation, streets, water, sewer, public power. They're all of them kind of go in there and then head out each day. So we need to be working on phases 3 and 4 of that construction project. But there again, there's only so much money to go around.
And then we have the water line project, but that's not really funded by the city. So you guys got a nice chunk of change for that.
Yeah. We were super fortunate. We had made a request of the state legislature. This was kind of ARPA related, American Rescue Plan Act, back 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, and requested $20 million to fix the main water line through town that was aged out.
Wow.
And we've finally gotten through the design. The state was kind enough to get that money to us, and we're kicking that off literally now.
Yes.
Oh, that's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Huge project.
That's good. So how does the city balance funding for growth and development with maintaining current services?
That's the $1 million question.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's hard because, first off, I think we're starting to see some of the financial benefits to the growth that's happening.
Yes.
April said 5 or 6% increase or growth. That's what we're kind of seeing in property tax growth this year. And from our preliminary look at the evaluations. So it's showing the benefits are finally there, because I've always said it went from the time you get a development to come in and get rezoned, it's a long time until you're getting to the point where you're going to reap any financial benefits from that.
Yes, absolutely.
But you got to start providing services. Police has to be out there. First house that's built, you got to pick up garbage the first time there's it's put out on the curb. So we're starting to see it, but you need growth. If you're not growing, I don't agree necessarily with if you're not growing, you're dying. That's not something that I would say. But if you're not growing, you're then the three of us or residents of the city are footing the bill for all of the increases that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
So if you have 30,000 people in Statesville, those 30,000 people are paying the increases every year because it's not going down.
Right.
But if you're 35,000, then you have more people to spread that out. Now, is there more cost? Yes. But with the collective, I think you're doing better by having that growth. Now you need industrial growth as well, because industrial pays the bills, with less impact on services as well as commercial.
Right.
So it's kind of like a patchwork quilt. Everything's got to kind of fit together, and you're better off when you have it all done. To have a healthy city. So
That's good. Good answer.
thank you.
For the
So that $1 million
$1 million
question.
I've had to answer that question a lot.
All right. This is a tough one. We are seeing issues with our infrastructure. We know we have a sinkhole right now at North Trad and East Front Street. And we know that we've had some problems with water, sewer, stormwater in that area. So my next question is, are you foreseeing any rate increases like for stormwater, water, sewer, tax rate increase? What are you thinking you'll propose to council this year?
I do not see a tax rate increase being proposed. Now, that said, I haven't seen the budget in its entirety. We're working through budget workbooks now, meaning we're reviewing the departments. If there's something unforeseen, and if there's something unforeseen, that's shame on me because I should know. But I don't foresee a tax rate increase, and I don't think the council would be. I don't think they'd be supportive of it anyway. Fees, yes, I do think we're going to see some rates, not fees. So the stormwater rate or stormwater fee, I do see that going up. We talked about that in the retreat, and it hasn't gone up in 5 years. And again, every project that stormwater does, and those are the pipes and culverts and everything that carries the water away from the streets, prevents flooding in a lot of cases, things of that nature. But also with pollution, every project has gotten exponentially higher in cost. So, we have to have a way to pay for that. And the fees are the way to do that. Also, the sinkholes are not expected. We don't know when something's going to give. So we just have to be ready for it. And that sucks that money away from the overall fund and gets us away from having to do big stuff. So that one's going to go up, or I'm proposing that it goes up. And then water and sewer. If there's one department that is impacted by growth, like directly, it's water sewer. Water is not really a problem. We have enough water for us and for another city, probably. Sewer is the sewer capacity is limited. It's finite. So you only have so much that you can treat.
Right.
And growth, as new industry, new residential, anybody who's flushing toilets needs sewer. Yes. And that takes away from that capacity. So we are having to start talking to the council about potentially expanding on one of our wastewater treatment plants. And those are not small numbers.
No.
So
no way.
It's growth related, but it's also us related.
Okay.
So it's both for sure. But without doing that and providing the capacity, you'll never get the the property tax benefits of growth. So, talk about not growing. If limits on your capacity will limit your growth for sure. So we have to start planning on utility rate increases to fund that because it's called an enterprise fund. People like to say, "Well, run the city or government like a business." Well, we have 6 businesses really that we do run. One is water and sewer.
Right.
What we take, we cannot spend more than what we take in to make that work.
And it's not just the facilities, it's also the infrastructure, the pipes. I mean, we're having to look at replacing some aging infrastructure. I know they're doing I think they're doing a study on that right now. They're working through that.
Yes, that's a really good point. So we're doing an I&I study, which basically looks at our sewer lines and what's getting in that we're having to treat. Rainwater basically is getting in. Wow. And we don't want to treat that because there's no revenue associated with it, and it takes up capacity at the plant. We have an old system, and most cities in North Carolina and many in the country are going to be dealing with the same things we are because when they're buried, unless you have a good asset management system that you're always paying attention to and cameraing these lines, you don't know, because it is underground. So. And that's what causes your sinkholes a lot of times too. So, yes, that's a big deal. We've got to start paying more attention to our system, because that's again that's the lifeline of the city.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are some of the biggest financial challenges that the city is facing now?
It's always the capital. You know, so Chief Only puts in his request every year, and Chief Curfews puts in his, and then everybody in between. So everybody needs stuff.
Yep.
Bucket trucks, cruisers, garbage trucks, you know, you name it, because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But what
Every day.
Every
Yeah.
day.
They're on the
Yeah.
road every day. I mean,
Yes. And what do? They wear out. They
do.
You know, and you can only keep them rolling for so long. So every year we have many more than we can fund, and that's always hard, because I want to be able to say yes to every department. You know, because I to a person, I don't think we have any department head that comes in and says, I need this, and they really just don't. There's a justification for everything. So it's almost like, you know, talking to my kids, you know, if my daughter wants one thing and my son has one thing and I got this amount of money, and, you know, who's getting what. So
which is the favorite child? That's the question. I'm just teasing. Teasing. And I will tell you, Michaela, I am in the city admin budget, and there's no fluff in our budget.
Right.
This man makes sure there's no fluff.
No, I believe it.
well, I haven't told you yet, but I do have some questions about your.
Oh man, see, here we go.
April, you can't
we
get
should
your
have talked
theory.
about budget. All right. Well, we appreciate you being here with us today, explaining how this
Yes,
works,
thank you.
because there's a lot of times we do not understand. What ways can citizens tell what they want council to know? I mean, what do you do to let the city and the council know what you want to see in the budget?
Well, and that's actually a really good question, because it's not done in a vacuum by any means.
Right.
I mean, we have public hearings, and nobody ever comes. I mean, I think since I've been here, and this is my 8th year, maybe 5 people have showed up. Maybe.
Yeah.
So people don't pay attention to probably the biggest policy document that we have.
Right.
And it's how we are spending your money. And now I'm not encouraging them to, because hopefully the fact that they don't pay it or don't worry about it is that they trust it is being done the right way.
They have faith that it's being done right.
But you got the public hearing. You know, that's toward the end of the process.
Yes.
And, you know, you can talk to your council members and you know, talk to your representatives and tell them what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Because you know, they're going to talk to me, and you know, that's probably the best way to do it. Some communities have you know, kind of like public round table or public outreach for their budgets. I've never talked to anyone that has said that they get a lot of input, and it's like, you know, if you think about it this way, it's a 250-page document full of numbers, $175 million worth
Lord have mercy.
And so how do you expect, you know, somebody who's just a resident to pick it up and say, you know, I have a question about this.
Yeah.
I don't expect that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's more of a philosophy that I would like to talk about. You know, and certainly never want to hide it, because we, you know, but it's just it's a difficult thing to weed through. You know, in general, I mean, it's difficult to pull together, and I'm in this every day.
Yes.
And you have departments with sub departments, and you have to go through all these different budgets. I mean, my eyes would be crossed.
Yeah.
And you are the head bean counter this year for the budget.
Yeah, it's not been good to have no finance director while we're doing it. Of course, we've done this before,
Yes.
unfortunately.
And you made it through.
Right. And you did
a great job.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
appreciate
we made
you.
it
I know I
through. We made it
I
through.
do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you. We appreciate you explaining it, because a lot of times we don't understand. If we don't understand, we feel like our citizens don't understand. So
Absolutely.
it's given us a breakdown. If you have questions, if you want to know who your council person is, you can go to our website at statesvillenc.net, click on City Council. If you have questions about what ward you're in, there's a map you can put your address in. I mean, we want you to reach out to your council folks. And if you have questions about the budget, just email us, info@statesvillenc.net. We are here to answer questions, and we love feedback. So again, head bean counter, we appreciate you. Thank you for braving it and coming back.
Oh, I enjoyed this.
And just remember, we have you listed on there for Ron Smith will get us a target before he retires
It's going to happen.
in
Speaking
about
things
20 years.
Nah, we're going to say 10.
He said for 10 years.
I don't think I can make it that long.
We'll stretch it out.
Thank you for everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast.
Tune in to the next episode as we share our dedication to transparency, public service, and governance, shining a spotlight on our commitment to keeping you well informed about all things City of Statesville.